All right. Welcome, everyone, to another Motivation Library Deep Dive.
Yeah, exciting stuff today.
I think so, for sure.
Very much so.
Today, we're diving into a real classic, The Magic of Thinking Big by David J. Schwartz.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this book is, like, everywhere you go, everyone's recommending this book.
It is, and there's good reason for that.
Yeah.
We are going to be, today, really extracting the key insights to fuel your growth, right? That's what this whole channel is about.
That's right.
So
Motivation Library.
Motivation Library, that's us.
Exactly.
So yeah, and the idea here is, you might have seen summaries of this floating around, but we're going to go way beyond the surface and really unpack those core principles that can lead to some really significant change in your life.
I mean, I think this is kind of like your shortcut to getting the core message and magic behind thinking big, right? Because Schwartz doesn't just say be optimistic and, good things will happen. He actually gives you this like practical roadmap of how to really cultivate this kind of mindset that just naturally attracts success and fulfillment in all areas, right? Not just your career or finances, but also relationships, happiness.
And what I love about this book is how universally applicable the message is. It doesn't matter if you're just starting out, you're trying to level up in your career, or just seeking a more fulfilling life in general. The principles that we're going to go through today are really relevant to everyone.
Everyone.
And it's really all about those fundamental shifts and how you approach those challenges and opportunities.
And that's really what we want to do today is to equip you, our listener, with those actionable shifts,
Yes.
So today we're going to be dissecting the incredible power of belief, right? How that actually shapes your reality. And we're going to talk about that nasty thing that always gets in our way.
Yeah.
Excusitis, right? Giving excuses for why we don't do things.
Yeah.
We'll give you strategies for overcoming that.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about building that unshakable confidence, right? Like how can you be more confident in yourself?
Yeah.
Unlocking your creative potential through bigger thinking, understanding the core of leadership, and finally, that vital role of setting those really meaningful goals, right? So where should we begin to unpack all of this magic?
Well, let's start with the foundation, I think, and that is the power of belief. Schwartz dedicates, a good portion of this book to this concept, and for good reason.
Yeah.
He argues that believing you can succeed is the crucial first step towards actually achieving it.
Absolutely.
It sounds simple, but the implications of this are profound.
Yeah, it's it really is foundational, right? It's the first thing. And Schwartz really illustrates this beautifully with the story of a salesman called Harry.
Yeah.
And so Harry, he wasn't like the most brilliant guy in the office, he wasn't the smartest.
Right.
He didn't really put in like crazy more hours than any of his other colleagues.
Right.
But he consistently blew all of them out of the water in terms of his sales results,
Yes.
I mean, we're talking about him like performing 5 times better than the average.
Wow.
And so the executives obviously noticed this and they wanted to know what's going on here. And they started like looking into it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't skills, it wasn't the effort, but really the key difference was Harry's like absolute unwavering belief in his ability to sell.
So powerful.
It was that made the difference.
That is so powerful.
Yeah.
That, it really makes you wonder how much we limit ourselves just because we don't actually truly believe in our own potential.
I think it happens all the time. And Schwartz even talks about how our environment can sometimes reinforce this kind of little thinking. Right. We hear messages, sometimes they're subtle, sometimes not so subtle, that suggest that opportunities are like limited, Right. That only a select few can really make it to the top.
Yes.
And so there's this idea that the higher rungs of success are already like crowded,
Right.
Too many chiefs and not enough Indians, as the saying goes. Yeah. But what's really insightful is how Schwartz reframes this. Yeah. Because he points out that leaders in virtually every field consistently express the opposite frustration. A shortage of individuals willing to take initiative and really demonstrate those leadership qualities. Yeah. So the scarcity isn't really at the top. It's really in that willingness to believe you belong there and to act accordingly.
It's like this constant kind of societal pressure
Yeah.
to play small, to not rock the boat. And Schwartz comes along and he's like, that's a lie.
Right, exactly.
There's more room than we think, but we have to kind of mentally prepare ourselves to occupy that space.
Yeah.
And he even talks about how we're bombarded with this idea of fate. Whatever will be,
Right.
which can kind of lead to this feeling of powerlessness, like, well, there's nothing I can do about it.
And that's the real danger of that kind of thinking, right?
Yes.
Because it breeds passivity, right?
Yeah.
If you believe your life is like completely dictated by these external forces, then why even bother striving for more, you know?
Yeah.
So Schwartz really urges us to actually push back
Yeah.
against this kind of thinking.
Yes.
And he presents belief as this kind of like internal thermostat, right? That governs our level of achievement, right?
Sure.
So if you subconsciously believe you're only capable of small things, you'll probably only achieve small things, right?
Right.
So your belief really sets this upper limit on what you even attempt, you know?
It's like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in action.
It is.
You know, if you set that thermostat low, you're never going to experience the warmth of significant success.
Absolutely.
And he emphasizes that crucial step of consciously adjusting that thermostat upwards.
Yeah.
Right, of launching what he calls this success offensive,
Yes.
fueled by genuine self-belief.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the question is, how do we actually do that?
Yeah, so Schwartz introduces this really helpful way to visualize this through the concept of Mr. Triumph and Mr. Defeat.
Okay.
Right? Think of them as these two competing voices that we all have in our heads, you know?
Yeah.
So Mr. Defeat, he's the master of negative self-talk, you know?
Okay.
He's constantly reminding you of past failures, potential obstacles, and why you're probably not good enough,
Right.
you know?
Yes.
And then on the other hand, you have Mr. Triumph.
Yeah.
He's the voice of encouragement, you know? He's the one that's focusing on your strengths, your past successes, and those possibilities that lie ahead.
We all recognize those voices, right?
Oh, absolutely.
That constant internal debate.
Yes.
And Schwartz makes it clear that we have the power to choose which voice
Yeah,
we give more weight to.
absolutely.
So if we consistently listen to Mr. Defeat, we will inevitably, we'll see evidence in our lives,
Yeah.
To support that pessimistic outlook. But consciously choosing to amplify Mr. Triumph, that's what shifts our perception
Exactly.
and opens us up to seeing opportunities we might have otherwise missed.
Yeah, exactly. And the key takeaway here, I think, is that successful people aren't like this fundamentally different breed, you know?
Yeah.
They're ordinary individuals who've just learned to cultivate and listen to their inner Mr. Triumph more consistently, right?
Yeah.
So Schwartz's message here is really direct. Never underestimate yourself.
Yes.
Don't sell your potential short based on these limiting beliefs, right?
He really drives that point home when he says that the magnitude of your success
Yeah.
is directly proportional to the magnitude of your belief.
Yeah.
This is a bit counterintuitive, I think, but he even suggests that pursuing big goals
Yeah.
can sometimes be no more difficult than chasing small ones.
Yeah.
Think about, all that mental energy you might waste worrying about all these small problems versus focusing that same energy
Yeah.
on this single, compelling, larger vision.
And that's a great point. It's really about where you channel your mental resources, right?
Yeah.
And Schwartz reinforces this with this quote from Ralph J. Cordner, who is the chairman of General Electric.
Wow.
And he stressed this absolute necessity as a personal self-development program, right?
Yes.
For anyone aspiring to leadership.
Yeah.
So growth isn't really automatic. It requires that conscious effort and crucially, that fundamental belief in your capacity to grow.
So the takeaway here for you, our listener, is incredibly empowering.
It is.
Believing in bigger achievements isn't just some feel-good mantra. It actually changes how you see the world,
Right.
the opportunities that you recognize, and your willingness to take those steps to reach those heights. It really sets the stage for everything else.
Absolutely. And now let's move on to something that we all encounter and I think often struggle with, excuses.
Yeah.
Right? Schwartz brilliantly coins this term excusitis to describe this kind of widespread habit of making excuses for why we haven't achieved our goals, right?
Yes.
He frames it not as like this harmless tendency, but as a genuine failure disease
Right.
that can, like any ailment, actually become more severe if left untreated, you know?
Oh, we all know those people.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, we've all been there ourselves.
Absolutely.
I'm not doing as well as I should because...
Yeah, exactly.
And then they give you a laundry list of reasons.
Yeah, and Schwartz points out that this often starts as a way to protect our ego.
Right.
It's a way for us to find these convenient alibis for our shortcomings,
Right.
you know? So we're blaming it on poor health, lack of education, being too old, too young, just plain bad luck.
Right.
And the list goes on and on and on, right?
Yeah.
And the insidious thing about excusitis is how it actually becomes this, like, self-reinforcing cycle, right? Once you latch onto an excuse, it becomes your go-to explanation for everything, right? And it prevents you from taking responsibility and more importantly, taking action to change your circumstances.
Yeah, so he dedicates a good portion of this book to dissecting these common forms of excusitis, right?
Yeah.
And it's really eye-opening.
It really is.
So let's start with health excusitis.
Okay.
All right. So this is the inclination to attribute a lack of progress to health-related issues.
Uh-huh.
But Schwartz immediately challenges this
Right.
with some very powerful counterexamples.
Yep.
Think about Franklin D. Roosevelt, who overcame the challenge of paralysis to become a transformative president.
Right. Right.
Or Harry Truman, who led the nation effectively, despite not having a college degree.
Even John F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
Lyndon B. Johnson.
Dwight
D. Eisenhower. All of these people face serious health issues.
Yeah.
But they did not let those health issues derail their ambitions, right?
Exactly.
These were individuals that faced, genuinely significant health obstacles.
Yeah.
Yet they refused to allow those obstacles to define their limitations or become an excuse for inaction.
Yeah.
And Schwartz contrasts these examples with individuals that allow even relatively minor health concerns to become reasons for not pursuing their goals.
Right. Yeah.
And it's about the difference between acknowledging a challenge and surrendering to it.
Yes. Yeah.
He even tells this kind of poignant story about this man who became absolutely convinced that he had a serious heart problem.
Oh, wow.
Right. And despite numerous doctors assuring him that his heart was actually perfectly healthy.
Wow.
And Schwartz, speaking from, I think, a place of common sense, he suggested that he seek further medical opinions. Right. To rule things out.
Yeah.
But also gently raise the possibility that it might actually be his anxiety that's fueling those physical sensations, right?
Yes.
And he even mentions this kind of a little bit of frustration, I guess, he has with people constantly seeking electrocardiograms despite medical reassurance.
Right.
And that leads to this crucial point, I think, about perspective.
Yes.
Schwartz emphasizes the importance of genuine gratitude for the health that we do possess.
Right.
And he even shares this really powerful old saying. I felt sorry for myself because I had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet. Right. It's a stark reminder to shift our focus from what we might lack to appreciating what we actually do have.
He also shares this fantastic anecdote about this colleague named Phil.
Yeah.
And Phil wasn't the highest scorer on any IQ test within the company.
Right.
But his consistently positive attitude, his infectious enthusiasm, and his remarkable ability to connect with people made him, in the eyes of the company at least, 3 times more valuable than some of his seemingly more intelligent peers, right?
Interesting.
It wasn't about just his raw brain power, how he chose to use and manage that brain power.
Exactly, which segues perfectly into the next common form of excusitis, intelligence excusitis.
Okay.
And this is this deeply ingrained belief that high intelligence is some kind of absolute prerequisite for achieving significant success. And Schwartz tackles this misconception head on by highlighting that the ability to know how to get information and how to think effectively was often far more valuable than simply possessing a vast storehouse of facts.
Yeah. I love how he uses Henry Ford as a prime example.
Yeah.
Ford, a man with relatively limited formal education, he famously quipped that he could always find someone
Right.
within 5 minutes
Yeah.
who knew the answer to any specific question he might have.
Exactly.
So he valued resourcefulness,
yeah.
the ability to learn, adapt over just, raw, static knowledge.
And then he tells this like really kind of wonderful anecdote about this quiz show contestant.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Who could just reel off all these incredibly obscure facts and figures.
Right.
And Schwartz's friend, who was a highly successful manufacturing president,
Yeah.
he watched this and he was like, what is the real world applicability of this? Like, what does it really matter that you know all of these isolated pieces of information?
Right. Yes.
And he realized that true success in life and in business often hinges not on how much trivia you can recall,
Right.
but on your ability to apply the knowledge that you have
Right.
to solve problems creatively.
Yes.
And crucially, to persevere through challenges.
Yeah, that's where the concept of stickability becomes so important.
Yes.
Schwartz argues that this sheer determination to see things through, to keep going despite setbacks and temporary failures, that is a far more reliable predictor of long-term success than simply having a high IQ.
Absolutely.
And then he shares inspiring stories,
Yeah.
like the 45-year-old who decides to become a minister, and the individual named Bill who earned his economics degree at the age of 55 to directly counter this limiting belief that you're somehow constrained by a perceived lack of intelligence or an inability to learn new things later in life.
Absolutely. And these examples beautifully illustrate that this feeling of being like too old to learn, to start something new, to pursue a dream, this is just another manifestation of this failure disease.
Right.
Which leads us to the next category. Age excusitis.
Age excusitis.
Yes. Schwartz emphatically states that defeat by age is almost entirely a matter of mindset,
Right. He strongly advises that we be job conscious rather than age conscious.
Yeah.
He uses the analogy of a farm where a boy transitioned into a man when he could capably perform a man's work.
Exactly.
Regardless of his chronological age.
Yeah.
The same principle really applies, in the professional world.
Yeah.
If you possess the skills, the drive, the ability to handle the responsibilities, then in essence, you're old enough for the opportunity.
And he also cautions against this trap of using like new positions or increased seniority as an excuse for arrogance, or dismissing the input of others, particularly those younger than you.
Right.
He stresses the importance of respecting your colleagues, valuing their contributions, and focusing on being this kind of supportive team leader rather than this authoritarian figure,
Yeah.
And he offers this really hopeful perspective by reminding us that, a significant portion, perhaps even a third of our truly good years might still lie ahead of us, regardless of our current age.
So to directly combat this too late mentality, Schwartz powerfully encourages us to simply start now, wherever we are, and to firmly cultivate this unwavering belief that our best years are still on the horizon.
Absolutely.
It's about maintaining that positive, forward-looking orientation rather than getting bogged down in regrets about missed opportunities in the past.
Absolutely.
And finally, we arrive at luck excusitis.
Luck excusitis.
This tendency to attribute our own shortcomings to bad luck or to explain the successes of others as merely a result of good luck.
Right.
Schwartz thoroughly debunks this reliance on chance by highlighting the predictable cause and effect relationships that govern outcomes in most areas of life. He uses the stark example of highway safety statistics. Right? Accidents aren't just random acts of fate.
Right.
They are largely predictable based on factors like driver behavior, road conditions, vehicle maintenance.
Yeah, so there's almost always a discernible reason behind both successes and failures, right?
Right. And he shares a compelling story about a junior executive, John C., who received a significant promotion and a less successful colleague rather than acknowledging John's hard work and dedication. He dismissively attributed it to good luck, completely overlooking the months of focused effort and meticulous preparation that John had put in.
Exactly. So the crucial takeaway here is that genuine, lasting success is rarely a matter of random chance,
Yeah.
right? It's the direct result of consistent preparation, diligent effort, and a steadfast willingness
Yeah.
to put in the necessary work.
Yes.
Right? Not some like fleeting stroke of good fortune.
Right.
So by consciously recognizing
Yeah.
and actively rejecting these various forms of excusitis,
Yeah.
you empower yourself to take control of your own achievements
Yes.
and pave the way for bigger thinking and bigger results.
Okay, so we've delved into the mental roadblocks, right?
Yeah.
Those excuses that can hold us back.
Uh-huh.
Now let's pivot to something that I think is crucial for breaking through those barriers and unleashing our potential.
Yeah.
And that's building unshakable confidence
Mhm.
and actively destroying the paralyzing grip of fear.
Oh, yeah. Fear's a big one.
It is, yeah. And Schwartz identifies fear as a very real
Absolutely.
and potent enemy of success, right?
Yeah.
Often preventing people from even attempting to seize promising opportunity.
And he lays out this very practical 5-step framework for cultivating that confidence and systematically dismantling fear.
Okay, love it.
So the first step might seem a little counterintuitive
Okay.
to many who are feeling fearful, but action actually cures fear.
Interesting.
So this isn't about like pretending that fear doesn't exist or trying to suppress it,
Right.
but it's rather about confronting it head on through purposeful action.
Okay.
And Schwartz shares this really vivid anecdote from Navy training,
Yeah.
where recruits who were terrified of heights were actually forced to jump off this like high diving board, right?
Oh, wow.
And the very act of taking that leap, despite that like initial terror,
Yeah.
had this remarkable effect in diminishing their fear,
Interesting.
you know?
Yeah.
And then he makes this like critical distinction, right?
Okay.
Indecision and procrastination actually serve to amplify and solidify fear.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
The more you postpone something you're afraid of,
Yeah.
the larger and more intimidating it becomes in your mind.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And he tells this story about this troubled executive who was virtually paralyzed by fear,
Wow.
but managed to break free from its grip by actually forcing himself to take decisive action,
Yeah.
even when he didn't feel entirely ready.
Right.
So the second step in Schwartz's confidence-building strategy is all about actively managing your internal mental landscape, right?
Okay.
Manage your memory bank.
Okay.
He introduces this compelling analogy of our memory functioning like this, like memory teller,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
That dispenses thoughts based on the deposits that we've made over time.
Right.
So think about it this way, right? If you consistently dwell on those negative experiences, past mistakes, criticisms you've received,
Right.
that's precisely the kind of withdrawal your memory teller is going to like readily provide
Right.
when you face a new challenge or you feel your confidence wavering, you know? And so unsuccessful people, they often get stuck in this like cycle of constantly withdrawing these negative thoughts,
Yeah.
which only reinforces their self-doubt.
Right.
But the reverse is also powerfully true.
Okay.
If you consciously make an effort to deposit those positive thoughts, recalling those past successes,
Right.
focusing on compliments you've received, savoring those moments of pride, then when you need a boost of reassurance,
Yeah.
your memory teller will
Yeah.
have those positive memories readily available, right?
Yeah.
It's really about being deliberate and selective
Yes.
about what you choose to dwell on
Yes.
and what you actively decide to let go of.
He even mentions a fascinating psychology experiment
Yeah.
that subtly linked whether someone interpreted an ambiguous painting as a sunrise or a sunset to their overall prevailing mental state.
Wow, interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he shares a very encouraging story about a woman who significantly improved her overall well-being
Yeah.
and reduced her anxiety by consciously making the decision to stop habitually withdrawing
Yeah.
those negative thought patterns from her memory bank.
Absolutely.
So the solution to many psychological struggles, whether seemingly large or small, often lies in this conscious and consistent shift in focus.
Absolutely.
The third key step is to think right to build confidence.
Yes.
And Schwartz emphasizes that at its core, confidence is the feeling of believing in your ability to effectively handle whatever comes your way, right?
Yeah.
And then he offers two very practical techniques
Okay.
to cultivate this feeling. The first being
Yeah.
to practice getting the facts straight.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And this involves approaching various situations and interacting with people from a clear, objective, and well-informed perspective.
Uh-huh.
Right. He shares an insightful anecdote about a job applicant who he calls G,
Yeah.
who stood out not by being overly eager to please or boastful,
Right.
but by being genuinely respectful, asking thoughtful questions,
Yeah.
and demonstrating a quiet sense of self-respect.
Right.
It's about seeing yourself as an equal, a fellow human being,
Yeah.
interacting with other human beings who have their own interests and challenges rather than placing them on some unattainable pedestal.
And he also shares this, I guess, relatable anecdote
Yeah.
about this hotel clerk who effectively diffused a potentially volatile situation with an angry guest.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
By recognizing that that the guest's frustration
Yeah.
wasn't personally directed at him, but rather at the situation itself. Right.
Right.
And the story of Paul W., the student who cheated on the exam, powerfully illustrates the importance of aligning your actions with your own internal moral compass.
Right.